The night was thick with laughter, palm wine flowing freely as Kofi and his friends huddled around the fire in the village square. A man of great pride and recklessness, Kofi lived for dares, and tonight was no different. "I can sleep with any woman in this village," he boasted, slamming his cup down. Kwame, his closest friend, smirked. "Even Ajoa, the madwoman." The group erupted in laughter. Ajoa, the village lunatic, wandered barefoot, talking to spirits no one else could see. Her wild hair, tattered clothes, and distant gaze made her the object of ridicule. "She is still a woman, isn't she?" Kofi scoffed. "Watch me." Fueled by arrogance and drink, Kofi found Ajoa by the abandoned well, mumbling to herself. He whispered sweet words, coaxing her into the shadows. She giggled strangely, her laughter echoing like an omen. That night, under the moon's eerie glow, Kofi took what he wanted, thinking nothing of the consequences. As he staggered back to his hut, he heard Ajoa's voice behind him. "You have planted a seed, Kofi," she murmured. "Now, let's see if you can carry it." He turned to mock her, but she had vanished into the night. Shrugging off the chill creeping down his spine, Kofi fell into a drunken sleep. Unaware that his fate had already been sealed by dawn, the nightmare had begun. Kofi awoke drenched in sweat, a strange heaviness in his belly. His body felt foreign, sluggish. When he sat up, a sharp pain shot through him, unlike anything he had ever known. "What kind of hangover is this?" he muttered, gripping his stomach. He stumbled outside, hoping fresh air would clear his mind. But the village was already awake, and eyes turned toward him with confusion. His childhood friend, Ama, gasped. "Kofi, are you sick?" "Your stomach." He looked down and froze. His once flat abdomen was swollen, round like a woman's in the early months of pregnancy. Panic surged through him. He rushed to the river, stripping off his tunic, expecting to see a trick of the light. But his reflection told the truth. His body was changing, trembling. He ran to the village healer, Nana Essie, an old woman with piercing eyes and wisdom older than the trees. She examined him in silence before stepping back, her face pale. "This is no sickness," she said grimly. "You are carrying life, Kofi." Laughter bubbled up from his throat, but it died as soon as it came. "That's impossible." Nana Essie shook her head. "No, it is not. You have slept with a woman marked by the spirits, and now you bear the curse of the gods." Kofi staggered backward. The villagers murmured among themselves, fear creeping into their voices. His hands trembled as he clutched his stomach. He was pregnant. The air inside Nana Essie's hut was thick with the scent of herbs and burning incense. Kofi sat across from her, sweat beading on his forehead. "This must be a mistake," he whispered. The old woman studied him. "No mistake, Kofi. The spirits do not act without reason." "Then fix it," he begged. "Give me something, an antidote, a cure." Nana Essie sighed. "This is not a sickness that herbs can heal. You have angered the gods, and only the one who cursed you can undo it." Kofi felt his stomach tighten in fear. The healer nodded. "Find her. But beware, she is not what she seems." Kofi left in a daze, the weight of his belly pressing upon him with every step. The villagers whispered as he passed, their eyes wide with horror. At his family compound, his mother wailed when she saw him. "Demon, what have you brought upon us?" His father's face was hard as stone. "Leave, you are no son of mine." Kofi's world shattered. Banished, alone, and cursed, he had no choice but to find the madwoman. But Ojo was nowhere to be found. Kofi stood outside his family's hut, the weight of his father's words crushing his spirit. His mother sobbed in the background, refusing to look at him. "Leave," his father repeated, his face cold. "We will not house a cursed man." Kofi opened his mouth to protest, but the words caught in his throat. He saw the fear in their eyes, the same fear he had seen in the villages. His body was no longer his own. With trembling hands, he picked up a small sack of belongings and stepped out into the unknown. The village turned its back on him. The men whispered behind cupped hands. The women shielded their children. Even his friends, the ones who had once cheered him on, avoided his gaze. By nightfall, he found himself at the river's edge, staring at his reflection. His belly was rounder than before. His skin stretched tight. The wind howled, carrying a whisper through the trees. Find her, Ajoa. The mad woman had vanished. But where had she gone? As he sat by the river, a low chuckle echoed behind him. He turned sharply, but there was no one there. The whisper came again. "She is waiting." Kofi shivered. The spirits were watching, and they would not wait forever. Sleep did not come easily. Kofi curled up beneath a tree, but the wind carried strange sounds. Laughter, whispers, the distant sound of a baby crying. In his dreams, he saw Ajoa standing beneath a blood-red moon, her hands outstretched. "You carry my burden now," she said, her voice both soft and cruel. Kofi looked down. His stomach swelled further, moving as if something within struggled to escape. A sharp pain tore through him. He screamed. He woke with a jolt, his hands gripping his belly. It was real. As he sat there, panting, the wind carried another sound, the rustling of leaves. Someone was watching. Kofi stood, his heart pounding. "Who's there?" The shadows did not answer, but deep in his bones, he knew he was not alone. He found Ajoa 3 days later, deep in the forest, sitting on a rock and humming to herself. Her tattered clothes clung to her thin frame, her wild hair tangled with leaves. But when she turned to look at him, her eyes were clear. "You came," she said, smiling. Kofi's throat went dry. "What have you done to me?" Ajoa tilted her head. "What you did to me, you did to yourself." Her voice sent shivers down his spine. "You were cursed long before you touched me," she continued. "But now, you carry the weight of your own arrogance." Kofi clenched his fists. "How do I stop this?" Ajoa's gaze darkened. "You must journey to the oracle of the forgotten forest. Only she knows the price of undoing what has been done." Kofi swallowed hard. He had heard of the oracle, an ancient priestess who spoke to the gods. No one sought her without consequence. But he had no choice. The curse was growing, and time was running out. The forest swallowed Kofi whole. Trees loomed like silent watchers, their branches whispering secrets. The deeper he went, the heavier his body felt. The ground shifted beneath his feet. Shadows danced in the corner of his vision, and then he heard it. A child's laughter. Kofi turned sharply, his breath catching. A small figure stood among the trees, barely visible. Its form flickered, shifting between light and darkness. "Papa," it whispered. Kofi stumbled backward. No, this was not real. But the child only laughed again, its voice echoing through the trees. "You are running out of time," the wind seemed to say. And Kofi knew the oracle was waiting. The river was black as ink, its surface unmoving. Kofi hesitated at the edge. He had heard the stories. This was the river where unborn souls gathered, waiting for justice. He stepped into the water. Immediately, whispers surrounded him. "Why did you forsake us?" The water churned. Tiny hands reached up, grasping at his skin. "You must pay." Pain tore through him. His belly twisted, the child inside stirring. Kofi fell to his knees, gasping. The whispers grew louder, and then a voice rang out. Let him pass. The water stilled. The hands retreated. Kofi looked up, his vision blurred. On the other side of the river, the oracle waited. She was older than time itself, her eyes deep pools of wisdom and sorrow. You seek to break the curse, she said, her voice like rustling leaves. Kofi nodded, his throat tight. The oracle studied him. You carry more than a child. You carry your sins. Kofi clenched his fists. Tell me what to do. The oracle sighed. The spirit child inside you will be born, but you must choose birth it, or make the ultimate sacrifice. Kofi's stomach twisted. Sacrifice. The oracle's gaze darkened. Your life, or your redemption. Kofi sat in silence, the oracle's words ringing in his head. Ajoa had not been cursed alone. She had once been chosen by a deity, a powerful spirit who had loved her. But she rejected him, and his rage condemned her bloodline. Any man who touched her would bear the burden of life, and Kofi had fallen right into the trap. He had a choice, but neither path was easy. The spirit child would not wait forever. The night of the birth came with the blood. Moon Kofi knelt in the sacred circle, pain ripping through him. Ajoa stood beside him, chanting. The oracle watched in silence. The spirits gathered. Their whispers deafening. The child was coming, and Kofi had to decide. Sweat poured down his face. His body convulsed. The pain was unbearable. What do you choose? The oracle asked. Tears streamed down Kofi's face. Take my pride, he whispered. Take my arrogance. Let me live. The spirits roared, and the world went dark. When Kofi woke, the weight in his belly was gone. Beside him lay a child, not of flesh, but of light and shadow. The spirit child stared at him. You have learned, it whispered. Now, live wisely. And then it faded. The curse was broken. But Kofi would never be the same. Kofi returned to the village, but no one recognized him. He was thinner, wiser. The man who had once been arrogant was now silent, humbled. His friends no longer laughed, and Ajoa, she was gone. The villagers whispered of him for years, the man who bore a child of the spirits. Some feared him, others pitied him, but Kofi said nothing. He had learned his lesson, and some truths were too heavy to speak.